This week, we hear some news from Hasbro about some movies they're planning, and congratulations to the winner of the Spiel des Jahres Award.
Then our topic of the week is storage. What do you do when you have too many games and components? Where do you put them? We'll give you our hot tips. My name is Jonathan Estes.
I'm Will Keeler, and this is Roll for Crit. Now, if you've been watching our show at all, we've brought up Marvel Dice Masters a lot.
In fact, we had our very own video specializing about it.
We did.
That's not how you would say that, but it's fine.
Now, they've come out with promo cards, which is a little weird since it's almost impossible to get your hands on the game. But these promos, I believe, have come up every month. The first one came with the basic card and came with a special Spider-Man. The second one was a special Thor, or I'm mixing those two up. But now, they released their next set.
This is for if you go to their
Yes,
events.
if you go to a tournament event, you, depending on whatever the card shop, each card comic book shop has their own rules, so we can't tell you what you need. Probably 4 dice for a character, usually is the case. But when you go into a tournament, you get a promo basic action no matter what. So you get that. But if you place in the top 3, which, judging by how many people actually have this, is probably only one person doesn't get this.
Congrats, all 3 of you.
You get a special hero. Now, this set, the basic action card, is Deflection. This is a nice cheap one, only costs 3. And what it does is, you choose an energy type, and all characters of that energy type get +1 defense. And if you get the powered up version, they get more defense. It also comes with the global ability of Pay Shield and prevent 1 damage to a character, which is nice for the offensive people because then they can make it so they also. Which is interesting because they said all characters. So that means your opponent's characters of the same type get that bonus too.
Yeah, I like that it makes you really have a different kind of strategy if you want to go for actually planning your team around the types.
Yep.
Yep. What's the other one?
The big card is Wolverine. This one is called Walking His Own Path, costs 7, and if he attacks alone, you double your life. However, it cannot go over 10. So, personally, I think the other Wolverines are a little better. I mean, this one costs 7.
But being able to double your life, though, sounds pretty strong to me. I mean, that's doubled. It does have a max. You can only have 2 Wolverine dice if you use that card.
That's true.
And I think for good reason.
Well, I mean, it costs 7. It's very hard to get there anyways.
That's true. That's true as well. But
I mean, we'll see. From what I can tell, it seems to be better to be able to just hit people off than to try to live long.
You could be right. I guess it really depends. Like we said in our show, there's so many other cards that we haven't even seen. So
that's true.
Depending on what strategy you have going.
But hopefully, these will become a lot more fun when more people can join. I mean, even though we have our sets, I think unless we combined, we can't get 4 copies of it.
We can't even enter a tournament.
Yes.
We're ineligible.
For most of them.
Yeah. But it looks cool nonetheless.
Yes.
Stepping to other news, Hasbro put out some stuff this week for the film industry. We got their first trailer for the Ouija movie. That's how you say it, right?
Yes.
Ouija board?
Yes.
Ouija? I don't know. But what were you going to say?
Well, why don't you tell people what that actually is
I will. So, Ouija board, of course, is a board with letters on it. If you're not familiar, you probably are. And you're supposed to sit around with a group of friends, you put your hands on this thing, and ghosts move it. And it tells you what the ghosts and spirits are saying to you.
The spirits are talking to me now. Buy games from us. I think the spirits have spoken.
Yeah, that's true. You should listen to spirits if they tell you to do that. But, so this is a horror movie, and it looks like terrible crap.
All right, well, here's my questions.
Yeah.
First of all, this is Hasbro, mostly board game company, especially for younger audiences. So what is this horror movie rated?
That's a good question. I don't know, but from the looks of the movie, it's got to be at least PG-13.
Okay, that's interesting because it's like, is it like Goosebumps, like PG type?
No, it's definitely.
Though to be fair, there are still some Goosebumps things that scare the hell out of me.
It's definitely going more for the vibe of sort of Paranormal Activity, but not found footage mixed. I would say something like even a slasher, like I know you did last summer. But the movie is directed by Styles White. It's a real name, who has basically not done anything before this. I have very low expectations for this film, but there have been
Hey, it's not like they have much competition. Remember Hasbro's other movies?
Battleship. Well, speaking of Hasbro other movies, they also have plans to make Candyland and Dungeons and Dragons, which they actually have the parental rights to. And what's interesting, for some reason, because of this Ouija trailer, Hasbro movies have been in the news a little bit this week. And there's actually a lawsuit with Candyland wherein a separate company actually designed the art for that game and the characters on top of the mechanics. So they're now suing Hasbro for the rights to use those characters in their potential movie, which, by the way, features Adam Sandler. So anyway, board game movies, a terrible idea.
So here's the well. First of all, I think that D&D has a possibility.
Sure, that's true. That potentially.
Once again, depending on who they get.
I mean, Ouija board could have been good too because there's such broad categorization.
Right.
Anything could be in that movie. But the
But,
movie. Sorry, I didn't really say. The movie literally centers around the Ouija board. That is the plot of the movie. That their friend dies and they like summon her ghost and other evil things with the Ouija board.
Well, here's my question.
Yeah.
Will the Candyland movie, do you think, be more entertaining than the Candyland game?
Yes. That's a very low bar. I think they could do that. I think they could.
But hopefully, let's fingers crossed for a Catan movie. Because seeing
there's-
people build roads.
There's Lords of Catan or Lord of Catan.
That's true.
A
We
Kickstarter
forgot about
movie.
that.
You can check that out. Not official capacity, but you can Google that. But what else is happening?
On a higher note, I would say, we'd like to congratulate Camel Up. If you haven't heard, this game just won the Spiel des Jahres award. Now, this is a very coveted award, once a year, right?
That's correct.
And this award is
Out of the German regions.
So you know that's serious.
Usually goes to more beginner-friendly type games that are accessible by all.
For this award.
This one, yes.
Yes.
The other one,
The other one, the Kindership des Jahres award, which is the tougher one, I guess, goes to Istanbul. So congratulations to them as well.
Both games that we have not played, but want to.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully this year at Gen Con, maybe we can check them out.
Yeah, and if you see us at Gen Con, say hi to us. We'd love to meet you.
It's true. It's coming up. Only a little less than a month maybe away right now.
And if you were curious to know what the runner-ups for these awards and some of their other big nominations, we have the link on our news.
Oh, I gotta go to the news. Okay.
Yeah, you have to go to the news. We feel like instead of listing like 10 games, it's better that you can just go there.
Want some bonus news?
Oh, I would love some.
The tickets have gone on sale for Spiel, which
That's
is
true.
the big convention in Essen. So somewhat related. If you're lucky enough to have a chance and the opportunity to check that out, tickets are on sale now.
We'd be very, very jealous.
We sure would be. But we got a final story for you today.
Final story?
Today we got a final story. And that is, there was an article in the New York Times this past week about Dungeons and Dragons, of all things.
Well, is this related to how Dungeons & Dragons just released?
Well, it is certainly inspired by that. The new Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition set just came out. It's also, I think, actually the 40th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons, or close to it. But the article didn't really focus on the game itself. I thought it was really cool. It actually talked about different writers and creative people in the movie and TV industries and other industries that were inspired or learned things from being Dungeons and Dragons players when they were kids. So, like
Any notable?
George R.R. Martin of Game of Thrones, Stephen Colbert, although he's not a writer, a known Dungeons and Dragons player, Dan Harmon, creator of Community.
Vin Diesel?
Vin Diesel is a big one, although
Didn't he actually
not
write
a writer.
an opening for one of their
Oh
books
yeah,
or something?
he introduced. He did an introduction for one of the monster manuals or something. And there are a few other really cool ones. I know Matt Groening of The Simpsons. But the point of it was talking about how being specifically the dungeon master role can really help tune your writing skills and make you a better storyteller because you have to build this world and all that kind of stuff. So it was really interesting, and it's always cool, again, to see board game news in mainstream news press.
So, and it's also telling us that if you play Dungeons & Dragons, you're not destined to live in your parents' basement for the rest of your life.
That's right. Well, you might still, but you'll be very rich, and you'll be writing novels very slowly.
On a side note of
George R.
that,
R. Martin, yeah.
we do have our hands on the new Dungeons & Dragons expansion.
Oh, I was worried. I thought maybe
Your
they were
hands
gone.
are turning into... No, so you should check it out. We're actually going to give it a shot. Hopefully we'll put a video up soon.
Yes, very excited to get started on that.
And a warning for that video, it will be our first time playing Dungeons & Dragons. So any experts out there, give us a little leeway.
I'm going to be putting a lot of work into learning the ins and outs of Dungeons and Dragons.
All the little things.
Hey, you got a Kickstarter Pickstarter for me?
Oh, I do have some good Kickstarter news. My Kickstarter I'm announcing is Arm and
Announcing
Moles.
it here. Go on.
Anyway, this game is pretty much a board where you control your army of tanks, and you get generals of animals, like they're parodies of real people, to drive the tanks. Some examples are Abrahamster Lincoln,
Yep.
King Anther, and Leonidas.
Took me a little minute to get that one.
Yeah.
Wait, oh, I see. Okay.
Yes. Get it? King Arthur.
Yeah, and then
Leonidas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's plenty more.
It's
and
subtle. You gotta
they're
think
hitting a lot of their
stretch goals.
Stretch goals, yeah. So expect more generals to come, I'm sure, and more tanks and more fun, cool miniatures.
It looks cool, yeah.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one to keep an eye on.
Mine this week is another one that I actually backed. It's called Hostage Negotiator.
You could really use those skills.
Really could. Made by Van Ryder Games. And what's interesting about this game is it's a solo, solitaire-only game. So, and that's something that a good handful of games have that option. But I know there are a couple that are only single player, and if you haven't tried any single player board games, there are some actually ones that I really enjoy that I think work very well as a solo game. And this game is you are a cop or FBI agent or something, and you're negotiating with a terrorist to get your hostages back, and you have to get a number of them free in order to win the game. But you actually have cards that will represent your conversation with them, and if you negotiate well, you get points that you can use and stuff. It's a really cool idea.
And you also roll die to see whether it actually angers him or whether he actually
Right.
kills a hostage.
Right. So like how successful, how it's almost like D&D again, like how's my charisma in that discussion?
And you can also set up sniper teams, isn't that part of it? Like.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
didn't see that part.
I was watching the video,
Oh, yeah.
and they said like setting up a sniper team. So I guess that's an option. Like.
Well,
if
I
you
know there's also, at certain tiers, there's a couple expansions that you can get if you back enough. The base game is only $20, and that for me, that's my like, if the game on Kickstarter is $20, I'm like, I'll back it, because that's not that expensive. But that looks pretty cool.
Oh yeah, you definitely can't wait. There should definitely be a way that people outside somehow ruin it. Like you're trying to talk to him, and I just come and go like, "Hey," and he just gets angry. Like
The PvP version of this, it's like, that guy's just not a good police officer.
if anyone walked into the room, he gets -2 anger.
Maybe I'm hoping there's a Die Hard version, so while I'm negotiating, someone else is in the building taking him down.
Actually, that would be really cool. Like you actually have someone else control maybe SWAT team. Like if they make noise, it actually increases anger and screws up your turn or something.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. Hard to coordinate, but
But-
good plans. We should have cut that part out
Yeah.
so we don't want anyone else to get our idea.
Anyways, plenty more Kickstarters, but
Plenty more.
you can look them up yourself. You tell us if you find anyone that are cool that we missed. But it is time for our topic of the week.
So, we're talking about storage capacity this week in many regards, both big and small. We're going to start talking about the games themselves. When you have a lot of games, as tends to happen not too far usually into the beginning of your board game hobby. There are some fairly big boxes, and they stack up quick, literally and figuratively. And what do you do? What do you do? I'm asking you and you. What do you do when you have so many? Where do you put them all? Where do you put all these games? There's no room on my shelves. What do I do?
You're not Seinfeld.
Not yet.
Well, I think one of the things that is really nice I like is some companies, all their games are almost the same size. Like, if you've looked at my game collection, all my futuristic flight games, like all my Arkham and
Fantasy Flight.
Fantasy Flight.
That's the opposite. Futuristic Flight. Go on.
They're all stacked. Like, they all are about the same size. It looks really nice. You stack them up sideways, and they fit perfect.
Yeah.
But when you get a long board, like some of the games, like maybe Comet or
Cyclades.
Yeah, Cyclades.
Also, any classic board game.
Yes. Oh, Monopoly's the worst of them all. It's just it's so annoying to stack them up because you can't get that nice line.
And then I think you can see it behind us, maybe Forbidden Island. That's
Tins.
when the games that come in tins, and even small card games
Cylinders.
too.
Don't forget cylinders.
That's true. Any like dice games and things like that. It can be challenging. You almost have to like separate them by size and shape rather than alphabetical or anything else.
I find you have to do it by size and shape. You can. It's nearly impossible to do alphabetically, or you're wasting a lot of space if you do. Pretty much, you have to play Tetris.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I think is important if you are going to start board gaming, you really should just go out to Walmart or Target or wherever and just get some shelves if you don't have some built into your house, because you can get them pretty cheap.
Actually, there are some great shelves that I actually use that you can't see. They're next to us, but they're really.
They look awesome, though.
Well, what makes them nice is they come about this big, and they just fold out, no building required, and they're easy to transport. So you open it up like this, 3 shelves come down, and if you buy multiple ones, they stack up on each other.
Do you have a name for these or anything?
They're literally stackable, foldable shelves.
We'll put a link in our notes so
Yeah.
you can check them out.
That's what they're called. That's how I found them called, just stackable, foldable shelves. And they're just really nice because if you're moving, they're easy to put away. If you want to move them, you can have them low, or you can make taller shelves. It's easy to adjust for when you get more board games and stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely important. That's another thing you mentioned, moving. That can be a challenge if you have a lot of board games.
You had that challenge already.
I did. And having to, that's one carload is all my board games. But that's a bit of a separate.
You know what's something we didn't even touch on yet with stacking on shelves?
What's
Miniatures. Because you can't stack those.
Oh, that's true. I mean, that's like a whole other thing. If you're a miniatures player, that's just, you better deal with that yourself. It's not my problem. You got to get like a box. Well, now let's talk about more the stuff in the box, because for me this is almost a bigger issue, is when you open the game itself and looking at the way, they have either a plastic or cardboard holders or dividers in there, 9 times out of 10 they're useless, I find.
Actually, the company that we just mentioned earlier for making such a great box
Right.
does a really bad job at the inside of the box.
Fantasy Flight, they have this thing. Do we have a game that we can open?
Yes, we'll see if I haven't thrown one out yet.
Almost every game they have comes with this cardboard thing in the middle where there's a dip, like a valley, and then on either side are 2 raised portions. So let's break this open.
board.
Yeah. So you can probably see that.
Or they do it at the opposite, in which that's the cardboard and there's the components.
Right. That's what I meant. This is the dip, and I think this side has this. But
It's not meant for putting things away, it's meant for shipping only.
right. So once you unpack everything and you put it in there, it's all sloshing around.
Which is worse because
Set my
they
mic.
usually include 10 decks.
right. Here, sit back down.
I will sit, don't worry.
So, as you can see, this gets us very upset. I think number one, to remedy this, you gotta have Ziploc bags and rubber bands.
Another thing I like to use, which is why I brought this over, is many games, including Fantasy Flight,
it's
when they
all
come
other
with
things.
expansions, usually about this size. So they usually fit in the box, whatever the case would be. So you have this box then, you're like, What are you going to do? I use them for other games. Like, I will put this in another game to hold the other decks, and it actually separates it really nicely.
The problem for me is, like, I'm a purist. If I have a box for a game, that's where the game goes. Well, then there's the expansions issue. You like combine them all. So like my Battlestar Galactica box right now is like to capacity.
Oh, my Smash Up?
Yeah.
That is the worst, but we'll talk about that one later.
Well, we can talk about it right now.
All right. Smash Up right now, I have every expansion, and almost always, because of the way it's packed and almost full, cards fall out, and you have to like resort everything every time you open it. Luckily, which is starting to become a trend with board games, hopefully more companies follow, they're releasing a box just to put in the new expansion and fit more, which is so nice.
Yeah, and for me, Legendary, the Marvel deck building game, I have every expansion. And if you want to fit them all in one box, which you kind of have to because like the little expansions, they don't really, it's just a box, doesn't have a place to actually store them. You got to buy extra dividers, you've got to like make room and organize them, and it can be a challenge.
That's not including the extra space from sleeving.
Right, and that's a whole other thing, because if you're sleeving your games, the cards will take up easily, it depends on the size of your sleeves, but could be up like twice as much room. So you really have to be creative with, a lot of people, if you go online, you can find it's like a whole genre of posts even on Board Game Geek where people create their own custom out of cardboard or even their own wooden boxes to house these things.
Actually, that was what I was going to mention right after that. There are some Kickstarters. The one, in fact, I was really missing because a friend of mine collects this. Someone made a huge case meant to carry every expansion of Dominion.
I remember that.
And when I saw it after it passed, and when I told him, he's like, "Are you kidding me? He would love to have that." And I would too. Actually, Arkham, I would love to have something that can fit all that.
Oh yeah, that would be so. Wasn't there one for Arkham too, or did I imagine?
No, we saw like fan made. Like you can go. That's what a lot of people suggest, going to hobby stores. They make usually wooden suitcases or trunks, and a lot of people use those. But still, I think the one I saw for Arkham Horror took 2 still.
And I'm just gonna leave. We didn't actually mention this in our Dice Masters review. Also, this game itself, it comes in this box, but if you're buying packs and more dice, it gets so challenging to fit them, especially because these are little dice too.
The thing is, they're thinking this like a trading card game, in which you don't store your Magic cards usually in the...
That's true, but I feel like cards are a lot easier than dice.
Yeah, no, that's the problem. They didn't think about the dice issue.
Yeah, which I somehow fit all of mine so far in here.
Well, and speaking of Magic...
yeah, because you have 18 boxes of Magic cards.
Yes, that's, one of the nice things they really do is every time they release a set, they release a fact pack. Now, these are usually about yay big. Comes with a couple packs, some lands, and a die, which is awesome, getting another 20-sided die. But then you can use that box for anything else, which is really nice for storage reasons. And they've done this twice so far. I really like this. I hope they do it more, not just for their own set, but to use for my own card games. Mm-hmm. They release these holiday sets. It's a huge box like this with some packs, same thing. But it has these 3 rows for storing things. Now, I actually have Magic card stuff in here. But you can maybe use it for Smash Up, maybe Dominion.
Sure.
And like, look, these, as you can see, the sleeves here are EDHX. It's a kind of Magic, also known as Commander. Each deck has 99 cards in it. The generals aren't in there. So that's pretty much 400 sleeved cards there.
That's pretty good. That's a lot of...
So with 3 rows, like if you had Dice Masters, you can also put all the dice in this one, 400 cards there.
Yeah.
So boxes like this are really nice. And this is pretty manageable to carry. I mean, it's not too big. It's those big white cardboard. So the trick, it seems, is taking advantage of other empty game boxes, at least in my opinion.
I mean, that's definitely, and especially when you get a bunch of expansions, like you said, you tend to have extra boxes.
But hopefully, board game companies will realize we will buy if they make special big boxes for us to store things.
Are there any games off the top of your head that actually have come with really good storage built in? Like I know... it's always nice, like I think Seasons is one where they actually have a place for everything, and it just like the cards have individual slots so nothing gets shuffled around.
Well, these two are really similar on the way they're packed. Battle for Souls and Dixit. Both of them come with like 2 empty holes for cards. They're already like, we're gonna give expansions.
Oh, right. That's another good thing is when they plan in advance for expansions.
So I have to give credit for Smasher for that, though. They did have plenty of room for expansions. Problem is, that's already up now.
Right. Right.
Which is why it's really nice that they're coming up with a new box.
It can only go so far. But yeah, no, it's definitely good to be considered. And I think it's, a lot of companies, I think that's not a priority because they're like, we spent all this money on the game and that's just, we'll throw it in there and they got to deal with it, which is somewhat understandable, but when they go that extra mile, it is really, I really appreciate it, and it's
absolutely
just makes things that much easier.
I think another thing we forgot to mention, because we don't do this too often, is drawer systems. Some people will buy like big drawers this big, and they have little plastic drawers that you pull out, and that's where they'll put all the dice,
right?
Or maybe they're miniatures, which is actually probably what we're gonna have to do soon for our Dice Masters.
True. Yeah,
but
we're gonna have to figure something out.
Yeah.
It's a problem. It's a problem.
But yeah, storage. The biggest problem, once again, we are lucky right now because in this space we have plenty of space to put the shelves. This is where we forgot to mention where you put the shelves. Because
hopefully in the game room.
if you only have a small apartment, there's only so many places you can put games. And if you live with someone, like if you're younger and living with your family, you could be like, want to put a shelf there, and your parents are like, no, we don't want to see your game stuff. That's creepy.
Or significant others, you need to have like a man cave if this is a 50s sitcom or whatever, or an 80s sitcom, really.
That's true too.
Yeah, it's like, get those games out of the living room. Guests are gonna see them.
Oh God.
Oh.
Well, judging by if your significant other says that, my guessing as soon as they find out you're a gaming person, they're gonna leave.
You probably should. We're in a modern age now. You probably don't need to deal with that anymore. But in 90s stand-up comedy acts, that sort of thing happens all the time.
But it's definitely a big challenge that anyone will continue facing no matter what.
It sure is. I think it's time for us to pack this topic up.
Oh, I think so. So,
if you have any ideas, maybe you've made your own custom box or some kind of special shelving system that you've got.
Oh, we would love to hear that.
Please send us your photos. We'll talk about it. Our email address is rollforcrit@gmail.com. You can also talk to us on Twitter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's totally true. Our Twitter account is @rollforcrit.
Or they can hit us up personally.
That's so true. If you want to
I'm at Dorikiryu.
Mine's @Quentz, and Ivan R. Hahn, our producer, man. And don't forget, please, like us on YouTube, subscribe, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. I already said that, but it's worth saying twice. And subscribe on iTunes. Leave us a review if you like, maybe. And of course, if you want to hear all about these news stories and many more Kickstarters and articles and all kinds of stuff. Plus, you can buy a lot of great games that we talked about today.
Like we said before, listen to the spirits.
Listen to the spirits and go to rollforcrit.com. Ivan just dropped a marker cap. That'll do it.
Well, before we go, let's just say, if you're going to Gen Con, tell us what you're going to.
Yes.
Because tickets, as unlike some conventions, at least the ones we've been to before, you buy tickets to events beforehand. So we'd love to hear what you think is an interesting thing to go to.
Yeah, so let us know now so we can coordinate.
Yeah.
Maybe we could check it out. I totally forgot. I want to mention one other thing.
Oh, really?
That's a separate topic.
Uh-huh.
Just as a final bonus, I want to say this was a little bit of news this week. There is a book called Board Games That Tell Stories, written by Ignacy Trzewiczek. I don't know how to say his name. He's Polish. This is the guy who designed Robinson Crusoe and many other popular board games. Originally, the book was only available through his company portal. You can now get it on Kindle through Amazon for $9.99. And it's a series of blog entries and essays that he writes about creating board games and designing games and playing games with his wife and his family. And he's friends with the guy who designed Space Alert. So it's like all these really interesting stories. I bought it this week because I wanted to check it out, and I definitely recommend it. It's my final recommendation for the show.
So our first book recommendation.
Yeah, we're going to have a book review session, but totally check it out. But that really will be everything, I think.
I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes, and this was the Roll for Crit podcast.